First of all, we're on what is now our fourth of the pre-season series. And this evening I have Tara Norris with me, who is with the Southern Vipers. So first of all, Tara, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to go into some things here which to start with, certainly a little bit different to what has been discussed in some of these previous sessions. So we're looking at the theme of sport and life balance. And I know that some of the people who've been accessing these sessions are in a position where they're still in full-time education and pursuing their cricket alongside that. So I'd be interested to hear from you about the challenges that involved and how you've managed to do that in recent times.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, I think sport is brilliant. I think you're learning new skills, you're developing as a person, you're interacting with all these new kinds of people. I think the issue or the problem with elite sport is that it's quite hard to switch off from that sports side. And I guess the problem with this inability to switch off is it can lead to a lot of stress when you've just got that main focus, potentially anxiety as well, because if you think about it, all our energy is going into this one sport and we've got no other focuses. And it kind of, I know when I was at uni as well, it became very saturated in this bubble, and meaning that if something goes wrong, you know, it kind of amplifies or magnifies the issue. And actually, when I did my dissertation, there was a lot of research on the benefits of dual careers. So whether you're a student or you're working full time, and your sport as well, and how it helps us to switch off and I guess balance those two sides, or if you've got other focuses, three sides, etc. And actually it leads to sort of a healthier and happier athlete. And as well, actually a really good friend of mine kind of described it as, if you picture yourself as a tree and all these roots are the things in your life, you know, sport, family, friends, hobbies, if one of those roots was to die or to collapse, you know, would that tree still stand? And that really stuck out for me, because actually, you know, when I graduated from uni, I thought that was such a big part of my life. You know, actually, what else did I have going on, and me as a person, you know, without the cricket, what else did I have? So that really stuck with me. Yeah, with uni, I think, you know, it's hard. You've got sport, your education, your social life, which is such a massive thing. And I mean, I'd love to tell you that I balanced it really well, but I didn't at all. I think with those two things, something always gives. And for me, it just led to severe tonsillitis in the winter, you know, almost a burnout kind of thing, because I was trying to juggle all these things. And eventually one of them just caught up with me. So I suppose my advice would be to choose or understand which is important to you, whether it's your education or your training or your social, and really commit to those. And, you know, you won't see it as a sacrifice if it's important to you. So for me, it was knowing, actually, you know, I can miss out on the social event because I know in the long run it's not going to benefit me, and, you know, it's short-term gain but long-term loss. So yeah, I think just be clear and understand yourself and what your goals are, and, you know, see them as they're not a sacrifice, but actually, you know, you're trying to help yourself.
Yeah, that's sound advice. In your particular situation, which with the increasing professionalization of the women's game, there has been these, of course, additional contracts awarded. This, of course, wouldn't have been guaranteed to anyone. So as you were coming towards finishing your time at uni, it must have been a challenge having your eyes on two different things, potentially going down the route of professional sport, but then also thinking about what might happen if that wasn't going to be the option. So at that very critical end of your time studying leading into that, was there anything that you utilized to make yourself be able to find some of that balance, just even in how you approached it, how you thought about it?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it was certainly a very stressful time whilst writing a dissertation, and I suppose planning my future, really. I think the way I coped with it really was by having options. I knew if I had options, I was going to be okay. So I remember writing down, you know, best case scenario, worst case scenario, what I wanted, you know, obviously I wanted to get a contract, but if I didn't, you know, would I look to coach, would I look to work and get a full-time job? would I go away to Australia and try and pursue my cricket and try and get a contract the following year? So for me, as long as I knew I had options, I knew I was going to be okay. But if I, just sort of sat around waiting for something to happen, I knew I was going to be out of control pretty much. So if I could control those little things, it was going to be fine.
Yeah, good point. And keeping the options open. I think that's been a theme which has come across from a lot of players that I've spoken to over time, about particularly moving towards the end of their career, but also as they're going into the career, that can get caught up with thinking about just one option, and that being the only thing that's available, whether that be sport or whether it of course be another area there. So that's useful to look at some of those areas of where balance can be
Yeah.
and I appreciate your honesty about saying it's not always been easy. It's great to say this is the solution, but
No, definitely.
it's a challenge, isn't it?
That's the beauty of dual careers. I mean, if you've got an education behind you, hopefully you do get a long-lasting sporting career, but even still, that will last you 10 years, 15 if you're lucky. And then you've got that to fall back on. Or, if I didn't get a contract, I knew I had a degree. So, it wasn't a big loss, but I had options and I could pursue careers within my degree. So yeah, definitely if you've got those other focuses and not just that one, I've got to make it or that's it. It just definitely takes the pressure off for sure.
Yeah. Now, talking of taking the pressure off, a topic that we have discussed before over these last I suppose 2 or 3 years since the first time I went down to Loughborough and spoke to the guys, is the approaches to cricket and then life that can be cultivated, and mindfulness, or an approach of being more mindful with your sport. Just tell me a little bit about how that's influenced you and how that has helped.
Yeah, so I probably when I first met you a few years ago at uni, introduced this sort of idea into mindfulness. I think when people hear that, they think it's kind of, I don't know, hippie-like or a little bit of a holistic approach. I actually did quite a bit of research into it, and when I spoke to you and you were talking about the benefits of mindfulness and just meditating for 21 days in a row and how that can increase your mood and your happiness by a ridiculous percentage. And I remember, I think, watching the Edge documentary, Jonathan Trott described concentration as the absence of relevant thoughts, which again really stuck with me. And I think, throughout the day, human beings have thousands and millions of thought processes. I think over half of them are probably negative. I just thought, wow, imagine playing cricket without, those irrelevant thoughts and that negativity, and not just in sport, but just in life as well. So yeah, I did some research and looked into how to start, and I used apps like Headspace, Smiling Mind, which is free, and yeah, went through these guided meditations and then tried to do it without the guided meditations. And yeah, probably on and off, I've been doing it most days for 20 minutes a day. And yeah, the benefits are amazing. I feel like I've got more time in the day. I feel like I'm a bit more focused, and I'm still probably at the process where I'm trying to transfer that into my cricket, which is quite hard actually, and trying to use the benefits that I know they're there, but to use it into cricket as well.
Yeah, and the theory of it seems clear, that there will be direct transfer from your everyday life into a sport, but of course it takes some practice with that to be able to do it. What do you think with those next steps you'd almost like to see as an outcome from embedding some mindfulness within your training and gameplay?
Definitely some focus, especially in the field. I'm terrible at wandering in the field and losing concentration basically. So definitely some focus in that. And I think just coping with pressure as well. The amount of times, imagine going out to bat and not thinking, don't get out, or I've got to score runs, or I've got to take wickets, or, I need to do well or I'll get dropped. And actually just going in and having a clear mind and actually being able to make those under pressure decisions and backing yourself and, feeling calm under pressure, which is definitely something that I've struggled with in the past. And yeah, I've definitely got overwhelmed in games and just become overwhelmed with all these thoughts and not being able to make clear decisions. So hopefully, yeah, if I can translate that, then I think anyone is capable of performing up to their potential.
Yeah, and it is like we've said all these years, that it's something to be practiced. When we say it's the practice of mindfulness or meditation, and people can be put off that initial bit because they might not want to commit to something which can take a long time to really be embedded. But I think your approach there of saying it's made some impacts in one area of your life, and then you like that and want to take it on a bit further, is something which I think people listening could think, yeah, all right, it doesn't have to be overnight that I'm suddenly going to be a completely different person, or it's not so much about that, but have a different approach to it. So yeah, that element of being able to tick it along with it. What things work for you now within a game to help you stay focused and calm? Because you said there that in the past that could be something which affected you, but given the successes that you've been having, has something been implemented which has helped?
Yeah, definitely. I think first of all, just breathing practice. Every time, all of us, when we feel panicked or overwhelmed or stressed, our heart rate increases, our breathing increases, and our breathing speeds up as well. So if you can control your breath and count in for 4, breathe out for 5, then immediately your heart rate slows down and your breath gets a lot slower as well, and actually you can think clearly. And also just like trigger words. Some people call them like mantras, but the trigger word, something that I've kind of used before I bowl or just before I set off. And 3 things, technical or confidence boosting, that kind of get me back and switch me back to the moment, which definitely help. So once I've set my field and I know the ball I'm going to bowl, I can just trigger to those thoughts, and then everything else will take care of the rest.
Okay, I like it. Now, our third topic is on the side of our team sport and looking out for those around us. And this can be really from the 2 perspectives: on the field, when we might enter a period where there's a lull, or the team is on the wrong end of a strong performance from the other team, but also away from it, whether that be dressing room, training, or socially. What are your key themes here? Because I know this is something that is important to you in terms of the environment that you're in and how you can support those around you and allow them to support you.
Thanks. Sorry, am I back on?
Yeah, sorry, I had to slip my mouse there again.
Yeah, and I think, well, for me, the main aspect of cricket and the benefit for me is the social aspect. I love playing a team sport, and I've made friends for life through playing cricket and this team sport. So yeah, being a part of a comfortable environment, a safe environment where I can enjoy myself and play a sport I love is crucial for me. I've been involved in teams where I felt safe, I felt comfortable, I felt like I can thrive in this team. And I've also unfortunately been in teams where I felt isolated, a massive fear of failure, and I suppose didn't have anyone to turn to when there were issues. And don't get me wrong, when you're winning at back-to-back games, it's hard to have issues, because everyone's just in a constant high. But I think the teams who go through those multiple losses and consecutive losses usually tend to come out stronger, because you have to, I suppose, deal with those issues, whether it's on or off the field. And yeah, especially now with the pandemic, I suppose, even though we're not playing cricket, actually kind of have you checked in with so-and-so recently, or, have you spoken to so-and-so? And just because it's not the season, it doesn't mean you can't check in with those teammates, because, now at a crucial time, a lot of people are isolated. So yeah, I suppose looking out for your teammates on the pitch, and off the pitch as well.
Yeah, it's important, of course, at the moment, given what's happening. And one of the keys to positive mental health is that connection that we get through team sport, but that has been undermined in a lot of ways by what's happening. We do still have routes to be able to keep in touch with people. So what's your reflection over this last, gosh, almost a year from first lockdown to then when you had your cricket in the summer and had some great successes with that, and then going back into the lockdown and having a bit of training? It must have been quite a journey and a bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, you know, I think it'd be hard to find someone who hasn't experienced, you know, any loneliness or isolation or, you know, anxiety over the last 12 months. Because, you know, I certainly have. And I think a combination of, you know, leaving uni, being with a lot of people, a lot of my really good mates, to moving back home, no cricket teammates, no cricket, and it's just fluctuated. So yeah, there's definitely been highs and lows. Now we're fortunate enough to train, so that's been amazing. But yeah, no, definitely, I think a lot of people will be going through, you know, a lot of similar stuff and a lot of worst case scenarios as well. I suppose the way I've coped with that is, you know, if I'm not seeing people, just making sure I'm making a really conscious effort to connect with people who I know are isolated and who might be struggling or not struggling. And I know for myself as well, to keep my mental health well, you know, I need to chat to teammates. I need to check on them and vice versa. So that's definitely been a massive thing for me, especially in this third lockdown.
Yeah, and time is running away with us, because I couldn't remember how long it had been. You know, is it a year? Does it feel like longer? Is it less? It just seems to be all that we can think of. I'm going to ask a question which is connected to what we've been speaking about. But what I'll say to others is, if you do have a question, pop it in either the chat or the Q&A. As I'm asking this question, then we'll go to them if we have any. One of the things, Tara, that is often looked at from both a performance perspective, but has its utility for well-being, is goal setting. And funnily enough, I was chatting to someone this morning about this, and the pros and the cons of what kind of goals we set and how we're motivated by that. So for yourself, at the start of a career, what kind of approach do you have to that? How do you make use of goals that you're setting? Are they big? Are they more process driven? How do you go about that?
I've definitely got some big sort of long-term career goals for sure. But then along that, I've kind of got almost like little stepping stones of how I'm going to get there, which are all little goals, which will hopefully lead to the end goal. Definitely make sure I think a combination of short-term, medium, long-term goals are great, especially when I suppose those short-term goals can be quite boring and you don't feel like you're getting anywhere. It's nice to, I suppose, remember the long-term goal and why you're doing this. And I think if you've got the how-tos and the whys, that will lead to the end goal. So yeah, I set goals every winter. In October time, I set goals in the January time for the summer. So for me, that's kind of the why I'm doing it, and so I can keep checking in, because, you know, at times training can be dull, and especially when the weather's like this, you know, you don't want to get up early in the morning and go running outside. But if you're conscious of what the long-term goal is, or, you know, I want to take X amount of wickets this season, I want to score X amount of runs, I suppose that sort of is your purpose and, you know, the why I'm doing this. For sure.
I think the why is something that is overlooked. I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because sometimes goals can be so abstract, like people are saying they want to win this, or they want to get this many of something by a particular point, and that can be motivating, but the thing that underpins it has surely got to be, well, why would that make you feel good? And there's a quote from a fairly unlikely source, film Cool Runnings, where the coach says to one of the athletes, if you weren't enough without a gold medal, then you're not going to be enough with one. And that really stuck with me, and I thought, yeah, a lot of things that we strive for, what is the purpose of that? So it's great to hear that purpose is a big part of that. Right, I've got a question which was sent to me beforehand. I've got to paraphrase it because it's a bit of a jumble, I won't mind me saying. What do you feel, what have you picked up most from the experience of playing against the seasoned performers that you come across, the people who've played a great deal of international cricket, or those who've come over for a summer from other countries, what has struck you the most about their interactions when playing against them or with them?
Yeah, great question. I think first of all, their commitment and hard work stands out massively. They're normally the first and last person at the ground. Yeah, watching them train and how hard they train is, I'm just in awe of these players. That's probably the first thing, and I suppose how humble they are as well, especially when I've been involved in the KSL and I suppose been a bit of a nobody player, especially when I've, if I've not been selected in the team and kind of a 13th, 14th man. I suppose how they go about their business and how they, treat players as equals. And one thing that really stuck with me was, these players, giving me tips and advice and happily will throw at me or bowl at me. And I think that sort of humble character has really stuck with me. And it doesn't matter where they are, their prep is always the same. So they're ready regardless, whether it's, a club game, an international game, a KSL game, their prep has always been the same, and their character has always been very humble.
Superb. Linked to that, is there something in particular that you've observed, either an individual or a group, that they do which you can take, that is more about the mental preparation and the routines, or anything that stands out as being particularly effective or unusual for that matter?
We once had a player at Loughborough, and every game she wrote down 3 things in her notebook, and they were quite personal things to her, and she ripped it out and she put it in her pocket, and she got to bat and she had these 3 notes in her pocket, and they were quite basic, I suppose, sort of, not tips, but almost like mantras, if you will. But for her, I just thought, for such a a talented player, it was, I don't know, it's quite nice to see that even they have their own insecurities and their own fears and nerves and things. So for something which was, really simple, and actually I never would have thought of it, her point of view was, well, look, if I've got these 3 points in my pocket when I go out to bat, then, I'm going to be okay. I've got these 3 things. And if, I get, if the scoreboard ticks along, or if I lose control kind of thing, I can go back to these 3 points. And I just thought it was brilliant, and actually a really simple way of, I suppose, like focusing back to the key areas.
Yeah, nice that. You mentioned within that the idea of people's, say, frailties or vulnerabilities, and what we can get caught up with as a society is this quite lazy thing of saying men don't really speak about how they feel, whereas women are great at it, and so on, which isn't necessarily helpful in my view, because everyone's different. What would you say is the situation in the women's game about how much of an option it is for someone to express their vulnerabilities, and what mechanisms are available for someone to get some support if they are struggling with their mood or their health in that way?
Yeah, no, I suppose I've always been quite lucky, especially when I was at uni. The teams I was involved with, I was playing with, my best friends who, were friends for life, not just teammates. So, whenever I did have issues or concerns, I would turn to my, my closest friends, which I was really lucky to have there. I suppose if you don't have those people there, the next step would be to find, if I got on really well with my bowling coaches, who I have that strong rapport with. So for me, that would probably be my next point of contact, or potentially a head coach, or someone who you feel, you feel safe with and comfortable with. And I suppose the next step is for them to get involved and to find someone for you to speak to or get in touch with, and find a solution for you. But probably the hardest thing is actually just to tell one person. And I guess once you've done that, the weight is taken off, and almost the work can be done for you. So yeah, my biggest advice would be just to tell at least one person who you can trust, and I suppose sort of leave the baggage with them, and and hopefully they can help you out.
And it sounds like that's something which has been an option. It's something which in the teams that you've mentioned, it's been an openness that's been fostered by the fact that people are close with each other. So I think that's always a lesson for people to think about, how they can make people know that it's an option for them to speak about those kind of things. Finally, down in your neck of the woods, there's a recent initiative which is fantastic that I think people would really benefit from hearing about, with the county club setting up their own mental health and wellbeing hub. And I saw that in the last few days you've made a contribution to that. Just tell us a little bit about what's happening there and how that's going to benefit the community that it serves.
Yeah, so Sussex have funded this fantastic campaign called the Sussex Mental Health Hub, where there is an online website where you can type in your local postcode and whatever symptoms you're feeling. Whether I've actually been there to check it out. There's, you can type in anxiety, depression, isolation, all the above, and you type in your postcode, and it's got specified GP specialists in mental health you can access. And I think I typed, there was one near me for over 50s, males over 50s who are isolated, and there's this like woodwork shop that you can attend in my local town, which I thought was brilliant. And if we can spread more of, I suppose, that awareness and support across other county boards, that would just be great. But yeah, I think I did an interview with Sussex about that and about female pressures in sport, and mental health in sport as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I think the more that these things pop up, particularly on a local basis, where, like you say, there's something particular for your community that you can access there, is definitely the way forward. And I think everything is moving in a good direction to that end. So that's terrific. We're just about out of time now. So I will say thanks very much for joining me, and we'll look forward to working together again in the not too distant future. But for now, just for your time, Tara, and have a good.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.